What's up everyone, and welcome to another edition of Combo Damage TV. So in my first video, I talked about the real reason why fighting games lack popularity and how difficulty isn't the main reason. I mean seriously, people will buy the hardest, most difficult games like these Souls experiences in droves because they fucking look cool. Yeah, mainstream audiences will buy a hardcore game if it's got the appeal, in spite of any potential challenge. Nonetheless, difficulty comes in many forms, and it's no secret that, traditionally speaking, execution in fighting games has always come with a sharp learning curve. Doing the actual inputs, particularly for special moves in 2D fighting games, has always been very, involved, making the experience for newcomers quite difficult, which is pretty understandable. Before striking your opponent, you're already doing a lot in fighting games. The neutral in and of itself comes with micro adjustments in your positioning, shimmying yourself in and out of your opponent's range, crouching, jumping. There's already a lot of movement and thinking that occurs in between hits. Factor in your nerves, which varies from person to person, and you can imagine how easy it is to fumble relatively involved commands. I still remember trying to perform a Hadouken and a Shoryuken in Street Fighter 2 as a kid, and having no idea what these inputs meant. Is it down, down forward, then forward? Do I press each direction individually in a sequence? How the hell do I input this command? Eventually, we all figured it out, and as the years went by, every roll command or motion input you can think of continued to be the standard. Unfortunately, moving away from these traditions has always been met with some kind of criticism or backlash from the hardcore fighting game community. This reaction, in my humble opinion, happens for two main reasons: the fear of leveling the playing field, and the fear of the gameplay getting dumbed down. Let's start with the first. Most of us have either seen or played a game of chess. Clearly, the finger gymnastics required to move a chess piece isn't hard. Mind you, chess is not an easy game, and the requirement for winning is making the right decisions, not how you move your chess piece. This means that just about anybody can play a game of chess. On the other hand, not everybody can win a game of chess. When you remove the barrier of difficult execution, you're now giving more people an opportunity to play, not win. Fighting games at their core are no different, because easy to play does not mean easy to win. The gameplay getting dumbed down. This is a fallacy, and there is zero correlation between how simple the controls are versus how deep the gameplay can be. There are tons of fighting games where pulling off complicated moves isn't a requirement for victory, and these games still have layers upon layers of depth. Things like universal mechanics, extensive move lists, and even unique character properties can all contribute to the depth and sometimes even the complexity of a fighting game. Being able to pull off difficult shit isn't really what makes you good at fighting games. A lot of us can relate to spending hours in training to get the execution down for difficult combos, only to be easily bested by fundamentals in a real match. Like a game of chess, fighting games are ultimately about decision making, and when you know what decision you want to make in the heat of battle, the last thing you need is to feel like you have to do backflips with your hands just to execute it. Like a typical Souls experience, the challenge shouldn't really be the game itself for the controls, but rather your enemy. But we're finally here, folks. That's right, we are living in the age of accessible, deep fighting games, and the change has been happening for well over a decade. Anime fighting games more or less pioneered the trend of offering alternative control schemes, at least by 2009 with Arcana Heart 3 among the first to introduce the infamous and notorious auto combo. As time went on, this mechanic evolved from being a secondary option in anime fighters like Guilty Gear and BlazBlue to a straight-up standard part of the gameplay in games like BB Tag, Melty Blood, Under Night, and even Dragon Ball FighterZ. Speaking of which, for years, DBZ Games weren't even considered real fighting games, partially because they were always built on simple execution even before auto combos were a thing. Now, Dragon Ball FighterZ, a game built on simple controls, is a whopping success with over 8 million copies sold to date. I don't even like team fighters like this game, but no matter how many one-button DBZ memes you put out, the mental stack required to excel in this game is ridiculous. Learning 3 characters, lightning speed movement, explosions all over the screen, multiple pathways to extending combos, teleportation. I mean, imagine having to pull off ridiculous execution on top of that. I mean, yeah, could we? Sure. Would it be necessary though? Probably not. And as much as my first video might make me sound like an anime hater, this is the kind of success you get when you give a shit about the graphics and the source material combined with accessible controls. Say what you want about platform fighters not being real fighting games, but there's a reason why there are so many Smash clones. No complicated inputs, no finger-breaking controls, and yet it has one of the largest competitive scenes in the fighting game landscape. I don't even have any interest in platform fighters, to be honest. Like, cute and cuddly characters aren't even my thing, but the numbers don't lie. Almost 70 million copies for the entire Smash franchise with no signs of slowing down. You can also say what you want about arena fighters not being real fighting games. I was ignorantly part of that camp too until I actually tried them. So you might be surprised to learn that Naruto Ultimate Ninja Storm 2 was actually Namco's second best-selling game after Tekken 6 back in 2010. The most recent iteration, Ultimate Ninja Storm 4, has sold nearly 9 million copies as of 2022, with the series itself to date totaling over 20 million copies. Like Dragon Ball Z, it's another example of doing it right if you're going to go the cartoony anime route, all while making the gameplay accessible for a broad audience. Guilty Gear used to be notoriously known as one of the most difficult fighting games, and now the most current iteration with Guilty Gear Strive is a complete overhaul with the most accessible system this series has ever seen. Again, no bias here, I'm actually not a fan of this one, but this ain't about me. It's about what the change has done for its success. Guilty Gear went from being a niche series for years to what is speculated to be the second largest fighting game launch ever on PC. And at the time of this recording, it has the most registered players at EVO 2022. Even Street Fighter is getting in on the bandwagon by offering what they call modern controls for Street Fighter 6, an alternative control scheme that drops the motion inputs much like DNF Duel. So I'm going to end off by saying this. It's safe to say that the battle has mostly been won around making fighting games more accessible. Studios are now getting recognition and even awards for offering accessibility options, giving more people an opportunity to play their games, including those who have physical limitations or special needs. I still think fighting game developers are shooting themselves in the foot by trying to appeal to both hardcore and casual audiences in the same game. Auto combos have helped, but usually when a game has both traditional and simple controls, there's some sort of penalty or limitation for using the simple option. And I think they do this so that the hardcore fans in the FGC don't throw a tantrum. Fighting games need to own their identity in this regard, otherwise you get useless, half-assed options that don't do much to pull in new audiences. I will forever die on the hill that the oversaturation of low-budget, minimal content, corny, cartoony bullshit deters most people's interest in trying fighting games, but at least accessibility brings us halfway there. What are your thoughts? Are you liking this trend of making fighting games more playable? Let me know what you think in the comments below. Until next time, thanks for stopping by and take care.